Hey YouTube, this is ThePotemkinVillager, and I thought I would do an EDH deck tech. This is very incomplete, mind you, so I am also looking for suggestions, and the stuff that I'm obviously missing I will trade for. So yeah, this is not quite complete, missing some key parts and staples and whatnot, but try bear with me, and suggestions would be nice too. So as you see, it's Merieke Ri Berit. She allows you to steal creatures. She doesn't untap during on your untap step though. And she's black, blue, white. And the deck is not really revolved as much around as abusing her ability as much. More that she is just a good shell for a control type deck. I don't know quite as much as most people about EDH, so this is mostly an experiment, I think. For mana base, we have a Mystic Gate. I am missing the other two filter lands, a Fetid Heath and Sunken Ruin, so I will trade for those. Hallowed Fountain, Shockland, Watery Grave, and Godless Shrine, more Shocklands, Glacial Fortress, Drowned Catacomb, and Isolated Chapel, I don't know, Buddy Lands, as some people call them. Sagiria Refuge, it's a placeholder for better things, yeah. Same with the Dark Slick Shores, and the Arcane Sanctum. Yeah, then we have Command Tower. It's 1 mana of any color with no drawbacks. It's really strong. Rupture Spire. It's good in the early game when you don't really have anything else to play. And it's just extra fixing. City of Brass. I don't really mind the damage since you have so much life to begin with anyway. It doesn't really hurt you that much. I don't like how it can't have colorless though. See, we have these two bounce lands. I know there are, I'll probably take them out at some point because they are good targets for land destruction that can really set you back. Other than that, they're kind of strong though. An Evolving Wilds, pretty standard. A Verdant Catacombs. I am looking for the other fetches. I don't know if I actually have enough to really trade for most of them, especially not the Onslaught ones. But the Zendikar ones are more within my range, I think. Maybe. People don't really like to get rid of those. Anyway, for some utility lands, we have Tech Edge. I'm also looking for one of the less expensive strip mines. Wasteland's a bit out of my price range also, but land destruction's pretty good. Academy Ruins lets you get back artifacts, and yeah, it's good. Moorland Haunt, probably going out at some point. Thespian Stage, does combo well with the bounce lands, but as I said, they may be coming out. I don't know, I like it in general. You can also, in some situations, if I'm just really screwing on mana, and one of your opponents happens to be playing some of your colors, you can copy it with that to help you out. Reliquary Tower, there is a certain amount of card draw in this deck, and having a maximum hand size helps. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic plains, and 3 basic swamps. Anyway, on to some of the spells. We have a Dimir Charm, probably going out for better things at some point. Lingering Souls, I like it combos with other things in the deck, which we get to later. And it's just solid, it's chump blockers, I guess. Kind of dodges wraths too. Inquisition. I would like a Thoughtseize, but you know, that's just $65 right there, so probably not happening anytime soon. But yeah, Hand Disruption is nice. Can throw people off. Counterspell, classic. Just counters a spell, counter target spell, pretty simple. Praetor's Grasp, I like this one. Allows you to steal something from their deck, face down. Not only can they not cast it, but you can cast it. So, if they're sharing the same colors as you, then That is pretty strong, and even if they're not, you can just grab a sword or a top or anything. By the way, I need a top. Yeah, you can grab something like that you can obviously cast, and it's just pretty strong. So we have Entreat the Angels. This is one of the win conditions, I think. If they don't get wrathed away, they oftentimes can win the next turn if you miracle this, because you have a lot of mana, hopefully. So yeah, win condition, control decks. Win conditions are important ways to finish the game. Control decks can have a tendency to dirtle quite a bit, draw a bunch of cards and stuff, but they need a way to actually win the game. See, for card draw stuff, we have Ancestral Vision. I like it. I mean, it's a pretty slow format, so if you manage to suspend this on turn 1, you're going to be drawing 3 cards pretty, like, without many drawbacks, really. Preordain. I thought I had Ponders. I don't, apparently, but yeah, I'd like a Ponder, I guess. Recurring Insight just allows you to refill your hand. It has Rebound too, so it's just draw a ton of cards. That's where the Reliquary Tower comes in useful. Brainstorm, pretty standard, I think. If I had more fetch lands, then maybe I'd have some shuffle effects, but, you know. Blue Suns, yeah, draw a bunch of cards at instant speed, and shuffles back in. I guess I'd like Sphinx's Revelation also for this stack. I think that could be pretty strong. Although it gains you life, but it doesn't really do anything against commander damage. For removal, we have Mortify, destroy target creature enchantment. There are a lot of pretty good enchantments. Not quite as many as artifacts, I don't think, but pretty solid. Go for the throat, just kill lots of stuff. Tribute to Hunger. This might be coming out at some point. You do gain life, but they have the choice of sacking the creature. I'll probably put in maybe Far and Away. Yeah, I have a couple of those. I don't know why they're not in here. One of them, as you guys know. Anyway, a Path. Path is just a catch-all, really. Yeah. Sorry about that, bit of a distraction there. Anyway, Swords to Plowshares, another kind of catch-all thing. I know I have an ugly one. It's the best I could do. Dismember. Dismember is nice because you can cast it off of 1 mana and the life doesn't hurt you as much as it would in a different format like Modern or whatnot, something that's not EDH. So yeah, you can either pay, a lot of the time you're going to be paying for Phyrexian mana, I think. But if not, it's still a good removal spell. Here's some Wraths. We have Terminus. Terminus is good because if their general is out, it gets put onto the bottom of their library. It does not go to the command zone, so that just takes away their access to it, unless they just happen to draw it, which is not very likely, considering they're, by that point, maybe 80 cards in their deck. Merciless Eviction. I kind of like it. It's probably gonna go out for an Austere Command once I get one, because Austere Command is basically this but better, although it can't hit Planeswalkers. Sorry. Cyclonic Rift. It's kind of just a one-sided board wipe, although they can play the stuff again. It can really set them back, I think. Pick up their enchantments, their artifacts, their mana-producing artifacts, their creatures, their general. If it goes to their hand, actually, then they cannot put it in the command zone either. Maybe wrong, but yeah. Phyrexian Rebirth, it's good against lots of creatures. You kill their board and your board, and you get something out of it that you can proceed to equip things to. Day. It's just Day. What can I say? Yeah, I guess Wrath of God and Damnation I'd also like. Or Damnation especially is kind of expensive though. And Supreme Verdict. Uncounterable. It's kind of nice. Same effect though. Now for enchantments, we have Phyrexian Arena. It's a pretty standard for EDH, I think. It draws you extra cards. It's pretty good advantage. Leyline of Anticipation lets you cast things with flash, which is actually kind of, it's pretty good, I think. Most people don't, I haven't really seen run this, but I could see it being good. I haven't gotten it out yet, but still. Blind Obedience. No, I think it's good for just the extort. If you can get this thing on turn 2, all of the spells, at least most of them you can play, will have extort, which makes each opponent lose life, and you gain that much life, which is pretty relevant. If you're playing against 2 people, they each lose a life, and you gain 2 life. Playing against 3, they each lose 1, and you gain 3, etc. O-Ring, also pretty standard removal. Same with Detention Sphere. Nevermore, I think it's just kind of funny. Just name their commander and can't cast it. I don't know, it's a trolley card, I think. Okay, for artifacts, we have Skull Clamp. I was talking about Lingering Souls comboing with things earlier. This is good, pretty good with Lingering Souls. You can also equip it, I've done this a few times, you can equip it to like a Solemn Simulacrum and be attacking with it. If they choose to block, you draw 3, or if you block with it, you draw 3. Same thing. Sword of War and Peace. This, I mean, it's a sword, so all the swords are pretty strong, I think. Yeah, this one, it deals damage to them when it gets +2/+2 protection from red and white. When the creature deals damage to a player, it deals that much damage. It deals damage equals the number of cards in that player's hand to that player, and you gain life equals the number of cards in your hand. Sword of Feast and Famine is one of the best inexpensive sword. I think the best inexpensive sword, not by inexpensive I mean not Fire and Ice and not Light and Shadow. It was +2/+2 in Pro Green and Black. When it deals combat damage to a player, they discard a card and you untap all your lands. Untapping all your lands in this format, I think, is pretty good. You can play more big stuff, essentially. For some artifact mana, we have Gilded Lotus. It's just a steady source of acceleration. Chromatic Lantern, just really good fixing. You just essentially don't have to worry about your lands, and the things like fetches and Evolving Wilds and stuff, and City of Brass, the stuff that would, say City of Brass, you could just tap it for 1 mana without having to damage yourself. Fetches, instead of having to fetch something, like especially Evolving Wilds, because that fetches tap things, you can tap the land itself for colored mana. Some people forget that. Here's Witchbane Orb. Probably Landline of Sanctity is better. Well, definitely. But I'll put that in once I get one. Yeah, this thing actually is good against a lot of stuff. Like, there are a surprisingly large amount of things that you don't realize can have to target players to actually work. Also, they can't target your planeswalkers, because if they're unless it's like a Dreadbore or something, or destroy target permanent. I need to Vindicate, by the way, on that note. Anyway, but if they're trying to burn it or something, the damage has to go through you before it can be redirected, so they cannot target you in the first place. Anyway, I have a couple clone effects. Phyrexian Metamorph, it can either just copy a creature, can kill their commander, or it could just copy like a Gilded Lotus or something if you need extra mana. I like it. Phantasmal Image, most of the time it's just 2 mana, destroy target player's general. And that's about it. They can't respond. Once it's in play, they can't respond to it, because the legend rule does not go on the stack. Yeah, it's a Phantasmal Image. Also, it's just a 2 mana copy something, which is strong. Evil Twin, it's not as good as the other 2, but it's still, I think, mostly used for killing general. I don't know. For some utility creatures, we have Blade Splicer. It's 3 mana, you get 4 power of guys, 3 of it has first strike, and pretty solid, I think. Combos with other things we'll get to later. A Phytoalchemist. Yeah, I like this guy just because you can untap your mana artifacts if you need to, or you can untap Merieke yourself, which is pretty relevant a lot of the time. I just like it. Snapcaster, pretty standard for any control deck in pretty much any format, really. You just get all your instants and sorceries back. Not all of them. Wow, that would be broken. One of them of your choice. But yeah, he's good. And he also goes well with a couple of the flicker effects that we'll get to later. Fiend Hunter, removal. It's O-ring on a stick, kinda. Here's Miss Meadow Witch. Here's a flicker effect. This is good because you can flicker Merieke to untap her and kill the creature you've stolen if you just want to get it off the board. And there are a few other things in here, as you've noticed, probably, that have end of the battlefield effects. Here's Solemn. Very, very solid. You get to a land as soon as he enters, and when he dies, you draw a card. Staple, practically. This is Notion Thief. It's a new one from Dragon's Maze. I'm testing it. I think since some decks run a lot of card draw, this could steal that potentially. Also, a lot of decks run Phyrexian Arena. Phyrexian Arena, that trigger goes on the stack, they lose a life, and you draw the card. So it's just killing them once a turn. And I guess it's pretty good against Necropotence too. All those pesky Xur decks out there. Disciple of Bolas. This is nice because you can steal a creature and then sack it with this. Also combos with Skull Clamp because it has 1 toughness, because you don't really need this guy once he's done his work, unless you flicker it. Consecrated Sphinx draws you extra cards. Pretty standard, just a bunch of advantage there. Magus of the Abyss. I don't know, it just controls the board, kinda, and kills a creature every turn. I just like it. I also like the flavor, it's kind of funny. Treasury Thrall, definitely a placeholder for something. I'm not sure what, but this will go out at some point. Arcanus, this guy, it's just funny. Tap, draw 3 cards. It's just kind of funny to me. It can also return to its hand. It has evasion like that. Well, yeah. Also, there's this one other card I'm looking for called 1000-Year Elixir. What that does is it's a 3 mana artifact, and creatures you control can activate abilities as though they had haste. This guy and Merieke can do their tap things the turn they hit, and also it has 1 and tap it to untap target creature. So it's basically exactly what this deck needs. Also, there's a land called Minamo, School at Water's Edge, and it has tap, 1 blue and tap, untap target legend. Legendary creature works with both him and Merieke. Shieldred, just big bomb. I don't know, it's just board control basically. An EDH 8 mana is not that big of a deal, so we can get this pretty easily, I think. Chancellor of the Spires, also probably going out at some point. But for now, I think I like it, because if you can flicker it consistently, it does not exile the card that you can recast with it, so you could cast the same thing over and over again if you want. Frost Titan, another enter the battlefield ability. It's not as strong as some other ones, but 6/6 for 6, not bad. Not as strong as some of the other ones like Sun Titan. It gets back a lot of your permanents, can get back some of your artifact mana, can get back small creatures, O-ring, Tension Sphere, whatnot, whenever it enters or attacks. So that's good. Massacre Worm can And when you're playing the right deck, it's a bit like a one-sided board wipe. Say if you're playing Gov, Guru of Spores. That guy would be so good against him. Kill all their tokens and they lose a ton of life. You might be going out though. Mana cost is a bit intensive. Triple black. Sphinx of Thune, Fact of Fiction on a stick. Just pretty solid overall. Knight Captain of Eos. This guy also works well with flicker effects because when he enters, you put 2/1/1 white soldiers onto the battlefield, tokens, and it has one white sacrifice a soldier, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it can fog a couple times, which is pretty good in a control deck, I think. It's kind of what it wants to do. See, for Planeswalkers, we have Venser. He is one of the consistent flicker effects that triggers a bunch of the enter the battlefield abilities of everything. His -1 with the creatures being unblockable is kind of overlooked, I think. I think it's really strong. You can just, if you have enough power on board, you can just Alpha Strike for the win. Then, of course, his -8 gives you an emblem whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent, which is very strong. Yeah. Next we have Soren Markov. This is essentially in here because he makes target opponent's life total 10. Now, like another format, like say Standard, or not Standard anymore, but when he was in Standard, that's not as good. At best, he just halves the life total. But in EDH, you can take it down by 30, which is pretty good, I think, for 6 mana. We have Jace, Architect of Thought. One of my dream ones, I think, is Big Jace, Jace the Mind Sculptor, but $150 is just a smidge too expensive. But this guy's, he's still fine. He gives decent card advantage, protects you, stuff. And the final for if you can ultimate in EDH, I think is pretty good because you can it's like a bribery for you and them. Bribery is another thing I need. And speaking of Planeswalkers, Elspeth, Nidoran might be good too. And lastly, but not least, Baby Jace. It draws you an extra card every turn. Nothing to laugh at, actually, although most people think he's weak. He's pretty strong, in my opinion. Mill 20 is not super relevant, because each person starts with 100 in their library. But other than that, he's pretty good. So, yeah, this is a Merieke Ri Berit deck tech. As you saw, it was not complete. There are things that I want. Some of them are in my wants list. Others are not. And I will trade for these if they're in my price range. But yeah, I'm open to suggestions because it's obviously not finished, and I'm relatively new to EDH. I think it's a really fun format. I see a lot of potential for it, as long as I find people to play with. But yeah, thanks.